Thank you so much for coming today. I had to do that because I'm a gym teacher, so I'm going to move around a lot. I hope you guys don't get distracted, but I will be up and down the hallways and aisles and everything else like that. See if this is working. There we go. Cool. This is the basic outline. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to talk about where I work, who I work with. I'm also going to talk about historical traumas that have affected the population that I do work with. I'll talk about my major influences, and I'll also talk about authentic project-based learning. And then I think we're going to have a time for a Q&A after that. How's my sound? Is it okay? It's good? Cool. Thanks in the back. I appreciate that. So who am I? I'm a gym teacher. Are there any gym teachers in the room, by the way? Or are they all out playing football right now? Like, is there literally not even one gym teacher here? No phys ed teachers? Oh, okay. High five. Thank you. You're so underrepresented, right? So I'm a gym teacher. I'm a feminist. Is there any feminists in the room? Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. I'm a millionaire. Any millionaires in the room, or it's like, yeah, brother. Okay. And the last step is I invented a time machine. Okay, so you stick through this presentation, you'll figure out how that all links in. That's me. That was back in the days. I was so humble. I wasn't even a millionaire. You know, my track suits weren't nearly as cool as they are now. That's me with my husband, Abdullah. He's from Tanzania. I did live for 5 years in Tanzania, and that might come up a little bit in the story. So not only am I a gym teacher, okay, I spent 5 years living off about $300 a month in Tanzania, doing wonderful and meaningful work. And I came back and I called up my mom. I'm like, Mom, I'm coming back to Canada. And she's like, yes, right? And then I'm like, I got a new master's program. Yes, right? So proud, like her daughter finally gonna go back to Canada. She's probably like a master's in like political science or international development. I'm like, no, Mom, shake that off. Master's in gym. Dodgeball all the way, right? My brother was just like face palm at that moment. I can't believe my little sister is gonna waste all her intelligence and all her drive on getting a master's in gym, but now that I'm a millionaire. That's that moment right there. I tag my brother in that photo all day on Facebook. I want to tell you a little bit about where I work. I think if I touch the green, I don't know if I get a little light on here or not, but if you see that little red dot up there in the blue area, that's where Santa Claus lives, okay? And I live just across that little body of water. I work in the Canadian Arctic. We zoom in on it. That's the map of the region I work in. It's called Nunavik. It's in northern Quebec. And if I were to fly from Montreal, as I typically do, all the way up to that very top village there called Salluit, okay, right at the top, it costs $4,000 return. Yeah. And as I take a plane up there, I stop in each little village along the way. We call it the milk run. Yeah. Dropping off mail, picking up customers, dropping off food, etc., etc. That's what it looks like in the summer. We call it the land of the midnight sun. We get almost 24-hour sunlight in the Arctic. It's just gorgeous. The sun is going down, and then a few moments later it's coming up. That photo of my students coming back from the hunting trip was taken just at, I think, half midnight. Can I say that? Half past midnight? Yeah. That's what it looks like more in the winter, sort of with the lighting, but we're very blessed. We can see the northern lights where I live, so it's quite spectacular. That would be what the village would look like in July. So Almost all of those units are social housing units. We only have 2 privately owned houses in that whole community. It's nestled in some mountains, and it's located right on the Hudson Bay, basically. So I get to see this for about 6 weeks or 5.5 weeks, and then this is what I usually see. So that same body of water is now frozen 9, 12, 20 feet deep, frozen so solidly that a plane can land on it, and the whole village can run out and greet the pilot, help take the cargo off, etc. Like I said, we're fly-in communities. That means there's no road networks connecting us. The only way in and the only way out is through a plane, or if you're really good on a skidoo and you can put up with about -50 and a maybe 3-day voyage, you could get to some of the next villages. I work with the Inuit. They're an indigenous group of Canada, and that's probably what a typical lifestyle moment about 50 years ago. I know grandmothers in the village who grew up in igloos. Igloos are a fascinating architectural design, may I say. They're quite warm. Once you're inside, well, for Canadian it's warm, like +5, +7, you think that's pretty good. All their clothing is made of seal skin, typically, and fur from wolves or polar bears. Incredibly warm, waterproof. Typically women did amazing sewing work, making needles out of bones, making thread out of other animal parts, etc., sewed and stitched together, skins that kept them warm and helped them survive for thousands and thousands of years. But the last 50 years has been really, really tough on the Inuit. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the historical traumas. Not many people, and I think even Canadians, we don't often think of ourselves as a colonial power, and I don't think a lot of outsiders think of Canada in that way, but we do have a colonial history, and I'll definitely use this spotlight to talk about it. There's several major historical traumas that anybody working with Inuit needs to know about. We went through a process called the residential school system in Canada. This was a period in time where the federal government would travel to remote Inuit villages and all sorts of other indigenous communities and literally take kids from the families, put them on a plane, fly them thousands and thousands of miles away, to a city like Winnipeg, for example, or Thunder Bay, where they would be put in like a boarding school, okay, what we call residential schools. They would stay there all year, and if they were lucky enough, they would get to return home maybe for a bit of the summer. This whole residential school system was based upon our Indian Act, which was basically a policy of assimilation. And our federal officials used to say it was literally all about killing the Indian and the Indian child. Right? So when they went to these schools, they were beaten if they spoke their language. They were not allowed to practice their spiritual beliefs. They were disconnected from their culture. And in addition, to put further burden on their shoulders, these schools were typically run by Catholic nuns and priests, and there are countless records of sexual and physical abuse. And this happened for decades. It is so bad that if we're now in the process in Canada of awakening our conscience to what we've done with this residential school system, I mean, as non-Indigenous people are finally starting to learn what happened, and we can visit the sites of these residential school systems, and if we start digging in the backyards, we're finding unmarked graveyards. Some kids never got home, right? Huge trauma. Another trauma, forced relocations, right? The Arctic is full of huge economic potential, mineral wealth, right? Potential transportation passageways. the Canadian government wanted to claim the Arctic, so it was Canada's, right? But who can we put to live there? Oh, well, let's put the Inuit there, right? They're supposed to be good at surviving, right? So we took these people who had traditionally seasonally nomadic lifestyles, right, who knew the land exceptionally well, who chose their camps based upon migrations and access to fish, whales, caribou, etc., water, right? And we made them live in some of the most extreme parts of the Arctic ever, right? Just so we could say, hey, now that's Canada. We forced them to do that. And in response, we promised healthcare, education, and housing. And I'll say we're pretty much 0 for 3 on those promises, and that'll come up later. I can also talk about the dog sled slaughter. That's something that very few Canadians even know about, let alone outsiders. When you think of the Inuit or you think of the North, you might think of dog sled teams, right? I'm sure you've seen images of beautiful, strong huskies, pulling a sled across the tundra. There was a time period in the 60s and the 70s when this forced relocation wasn't going so well. And these Inuit weren't quite staying in the village like the Canadian government wanted them to, right? So what they did is they sent up our Royal Canadian Mounted Police with bullets, and they shot every dog in the village. And then they left that hunter with a jerry can full of gasoline to burn the carcass. Stripping away, and undermining a part of the culture that kept these people alive for thousands and thousands of years. Sometimes people ask me, what's the economy like up there? I'm like, well, they had one up until the 60s and 70s. They could feed themselves. But thanks to these types of traumas, it's just been devastating for them. My grandmother was telling me before I left a story about the day her dogs died. She can remember she had just been returned from a residential school. She came back to find her dad. Her dad was there, luckily. Her mom had died of tuberculosis. Her other sister was away at residential school. And that was the day that the police came and shot all the dogs. And she's like, that's the day my dad started to drink. He had lost his wife. He had been taken from the land, forced to live in a village, all his dogs killed, stripped of his masculinity, and lost his 2 children. That's the day he started to drink. How do I see the world? I try as much as possible to take a post-colonial lens. I believe that colonization did and continues to exist. I try to take up a feminist lens. I also try to take up a community development lens. I believe that the best type of curriculum is one that's linked to the local context. I also believe in youth empowerment as much as possible. To give you a quick socioeconomic overview, these aren't any good stats here at all. We have a severe housing crisis. Most of my students sleep on the living room or on the couch. I know a lot of 40-year-olds in my village who continue to raise their 2 children and have a relationship with their partner inside the bedroom of a house that they still continue to share with their parents and grandparents. Food insecurity is up 52 to 72%. Thanks again to the dog slaughter, and thanks again to the incredible high cost of food in a community where it's $4,000 just to get a plane ticket up there. I buy tomatoes that are soft, okay, it costs $4. A pineapple, $12 to $20. A box of cereal, $14 at least. Criminalization, 10 times the Canadian average. Lots of times my students can't come to school because dad's in jail, mom's in jail. I've got to take care of my little kids. I won't make it to school this morning. Low graduation rate. We have on rec, I believe that this stats do change a little bit by village, but we have about an 85 to 95% dropout rate in our communities. And tons of drug and alcohol addictions. I got to bring a gender lens to this, yeah. Oh, that's a quality of life, index right there. Good on the details. Gendered realities, right? Over 50% have experienced sexual abuse. And this is really important to me as a gym teacher, phys ed teacher, because when you go through a trauma, almost any trauma, especially one about sexual abuse or physical abuse, you often disassociate from your body. It's one of the first things you do to kind of protect yourself from that trauma. So I'll try to link that in later. Domestic duties, like I said, if her dad's in jail, her mom's in jail, she can't come to school. It's not her brothers who are going to be taking care of the kids, getting the groceries, being Cinderella. It's her, right? Teenage pregnancies, fastest population growth in Canada. Single parent families, again, this girl-child issue, often they're the surrogate parent. And they're more likely to be in the formal economy, pressure to provide to the household economy. All of this intergenerational trauma has been going on for decades for the Inuit. It's being passed down on to the young people. Okay, and it's resulted in what we call a suicide crisis. Okay? And this is not just in the Inuit community I live in. This is right across our nation with nearly all our Indigenous people. Okay? And when I talk about a suicide crisis, I live in a community now, but I think it's between 1,300 to 1,400 people. I can't even count the number of funerals I've been to. I've been there 7 years. I stopped counting when I got to 12. It seems so morbid, to keep counting all the deaths. But for 1 year, when I lost my first student, the next 12 months that I did count, we had 10 young youth suicides in 1 year in a community of up to 1,400 people. That's just my community, right? 10. This is what Facebook looks like when there's a suicide crisis. That's one of my students, Mo, visiting his best friend, right? Every research shows every time you lose someone to suicide, you're more at risk of suicide yourself. He struggles with suicidal thoughts. This is what teenagers post about when you live in a suicide crisis. These are actual Facebook posts. I log on, that's what I see. A 15-year-old posting about her 13-year-old sister. Kids wanting to find a way to escape that pain of intergenerational trauma, but they don't even want to hurt anybody else. It's tremendous. Sorry to bring the mood down, okay? My apologies. I am an eternal optimist, and I can name 100 problems in that community. And I think you just look at some stats, we could easily think of 500 problems. But to me, you can't focus on the problems, you got to get to the solutions. And for every 100 problems, I guarantee there's probably 1,000 solutions, or there's at least 1,000 things we can try, right? So I'm going to try to tell now my story about how as a teacher, I try to get to some of those solutions. The approach I bring into the classroom is that I want my students to be masters of their own destiny. And that's incredibly important when you think about them living in a colonial context. Are we post-colonial? I'm not too sure. But I want them to be masters of their own destiny. I want them to be able to dream. I don't want them to take on my dreams, my Western or Southern realities. I want to know what their dreams are. I want to help them get there. I take an asset-based community development approach. We call it the ABCDs. I focus on the talents and the resources, and I try to work within them. I always think the glass is half full. I don't worry about that it's half empty. I focus on what's there and try to work within that. Whenever I'm creating a project, I try to do a gender analysis. I try to identify talents and resources and opportunities and strengths that are within the community. And I want to make meaningful, real-life experiences for my students. And I want to create platforms where they get celebrated, where they get praised, where they realize that they're agents of change. So what does this look like? Okay, here's an example. the young people in my community, one of the challenges, no safe recreational spaces to go to, okay? So a ton of them are smoking weed. Actually, the stats show, I think 11 years and up, 65% of the population are smoking cigarettes on a daily basis, okay? Even at the age of 11, okay? So, and then marijuana is also kicking in as well too. So the youth just didn't really have like a place to hang out, another option, etc. So I worked with my students. I chased down a grant. We got $100,000, okay? And we built, and I worked with the community, okay? I worked with the municipality. We made this fantastic fitness center, first ever fitness center in the community. And me, with my students, we would open it every single, weekday night, 4 to 10, right? We would be up there, and it became like a whole other family space to come to, Because this young Inuit in that photo, she used to tell me all the time, her name is Mary, it's so lonely to be healthy in this community, Maggie. She would face so much peer pressure to party, smoke, drink, etc., right? But she could come to the fitness center every night. She'd meet other young people coming up there, learning new ways to cope with mental health issues, developing new hobbies, cultivating new healthy lifestyles, right? And so this fitness center became home to our running club, right? As I said before, I was so privileged to live in Tanzania and East Africa. And I stole not only my husband from there, but I stole some great wisdom from there, okay? They have this expression, when you run by yourself, you run fast, okay? Well, this is not a food belly, by the way, guys. Right now, I probably don't look like I can run too fast, right? I'm 7 months pregnant, okay? But that's the expression. When you run by yourself, you run fast, right? But when you run with many, you can run so far. And this is what I preach to my students every single day, and what I preach to my runners. So that's Mary, okay? I think this was 2013. That's a photo of us, okay, in Hawaii, okay? This photo was taken 1 hour later after she had just run up and down a volcano. She ran a half marathon. It was her second half marathon. That's 22 kilometers. She trained for it in the Arctic, at the fitness center, or outside. And as she crossed the finish line, and I should say too, she didn't just train to run the marathon, the half marathon. She actually fundraised $6,000 for diabetes prevention, okay? And she crosses the finish line in second place in her age division, right? Mary can run fast, okay? And I'm like, Mary, can we run far? We gotta get more people in on this. So we go back, we tell a story, we recruit other teenagers, we get Larry on board. That's a photo of Larry running in February, coldest month of the year, okay? So cold, we're talking minus 40 to minus 60, winds up to 90 kilometers an hour. That's his sweat freezing. But you see that smile? He's loving it, okay? That's Larry training right there. That's us in Hawaii the next year, 9 of us, okay? All of these kids, all of them, ran a half marathon in Hawaii again. They came together, okay? And I love to mix up the group, right? I love to bring my alphas, my kids are going to steal the podium. So that year, the young man flexing like this on the bottom, right? Mary's cousin, small village like that, everybody's somebody's cousin, okay? But nonetheless, Mary's cousin, Yohanesi, first time ever running a half marathon, first time ever in a race, steals it, wins his age division, okay? Wants to run another marathon the next day. Like, no, Yohanesi, you're going to chill out, we're going to go to the beach, okay? Not only did they finish the race, but along that journey, they're not just athletes, they're not just students, they're philanthropists, because they fundraised $30,000 in our village of 1,400 people. They fundraised $30,000 to help other northern youth, right? And when I say I like to mix up the type of kids I attract, this is Jason. Jason's been smoking cigarettes since he was 9, smoking weed since he was 11, #1 rock thrower and vandalizer in town, dropped out of school, right? But he used to come to the fitness center, he liked that. Started hanging out with Mary, started hanging out with Larry. You honestly builds a social network, wants to chill with me, thinks I'm pretty cool, you know, because I am, right? Comes back to school, stops smoking cigarettes, stops smoking marijuana. In that photo, just finished his first half marathon. He's a healthy, resilient philanthropist. That's what happens when we decide to invest in young people. And of course, you gotta have a dance lesson when you're there too. And it didn't stop there, right? Even though we have terrible internet, everybody's got an iPod. We don't have iPhones up there, everybody's laughing at me. You're asking me for my number. I'm like, I have an iPod. Maybe that's what your 9-year-old has, I'm not sure. But we can't have iPhones because there's no cellular network. But we decided, you know, with our iPods, etc., to make a little documentary about what we did. We captured it, right? And my husband stitched it together, made a cool little film. The school board saw it, was like amazed, right? So they decided to send us on a tour of the whole region. We went and we visited 5 villages. So here I've got Jason, okay? Jason, whose parents are full-time drug dealers, whose dad is in and out of a mental health clinic in Montreal, okay? And he's a healthy role model. And he's traveling across the region with his fellow runners, and he's getting other kids to start running clubs, right? You don't believe me? That's one of the villages, Kuujjuaq, okay? Right now, they have a full-time running club, okay? And I'm working with them. The kids just fundraised through a hot dog barbecue, $1,600, okay? And we're going to Barbados in December. Amazing, right? This, thanks again partly to this award and the success of the running club, we had another regional effect. We took these 2 runners from other villages, not even Salluit, okay? Not even my village, okay? We took them down to Toronto and they smashed a 5K. Running in honor of youth mental health. And then the film gets picked up by a film festival. My runners turn into red carpet Hollywood superstars, okay? This is what happens when your classroom doesn't have 4 walls, okay? When your classroom is in the real world, it can grow in all sorts of ways that I could never, ever predict. That's Mary again, the girl who started it all. You might not know, but the fine gentleman on your right, that's the Queen of England. That's our Governor General, okay? David Johnson. He heard about the story. He comes all the way up to check it out. First time ever for him and his wife to come to the village of Salluit. First time ever we were graced by the Governor General. And there Mary is, teaching him how to work out. That's what Facebook looks like when you choose to take that quote-unquote risk and invest in young people and invest in their health. $100,000, people used to say, oh, that's a lot of money, Maggie. That's a lot of money. I want you to go and count the amount of money spent on drugs, alcohol, weed, cigarettes every single day. Look at what that $100,000 investment did. I love girls, okay? When I arrived in the village, I was asked to lead a project-based learning classroom. It was co-ed, right? Co-ed on paper, not in reality. I had 11 boys and 1 girl. And I was like, what's up with this? Where are the girls, right? So it took me a little time. I had to talk, get to know the girls in the hallway, get to know the girls who were outside of school, you know, who had already dropped out, ask them what's up, etc. They said they didn't feel so comfortable coming to the school and joining that classroom because a lot of the boys in that classroom had some pretty tough reputations. You know, they had been in and out of some jail cells, you know, etc., etc. They didn't feel so comfortable with them. So I convinced my principal, my school board, hey, This is a structural barrier. We gotta figure out a way around it. The girls want to come, but they just don't feel safe. Okay? Can we do something? Can we make it a girls-only classroom and a boys-only one? They went for it, right? September 3rd, 12 girls registered. From 1 to 12, my classroom is just filled up, just like that. All of these girls, dropouts. Now they're back at school. And I'm engaging them in changing the way the community sees them. Because they're all dropouts, delinquents, kind of mini, juvenile drug dealers, etc. But I got to create new platforms for them. Okay? So I chased down some more funding for a program called Students Feeding Students. Every day my students would pump out, pedal out, because I'm a gym teacher, right? So I found this bicycle with a blender, okay? You loved it, right? You loved it. You get me, right? So they're pedaling away 200 frozen raspberry mango smoothies every single day. And they're giving them to kids at recess, right? We're starting to address food insecurity. There was this old shack, and it was in terrible condition. And I said, hey, let's dream with this. What can we do? The girls and myself, somehow, we got together, we renovated the place. We turned it into the first coffee shop in the community. A lot of them were struggling with financial issues, right? They came from single-parent families. Sometimes they didn't have parents at the time. You know, they wouldn't have parents in the village for a few months. They needed a little bit of income, right? So I would help them out, help them get work placements. We used to do meals for elders, meals for pregnant women, right? Our reputations changed so much that on that photo on the right, that was an incredible day. We were at the daycare. The mayor calls me. It's like, Maggie. I'm like, yo, mayor, what's up? It's like, I need your help. I'm like, I'm your superstar. What can I do? So he's like, can you run the federal election? Sorry, is the phone cut out there? Can you say that again? Can you and your girls run the federal election? We got this. No problems. We ran the federal election. Trudeau, are you listening? We helped you get there. Take care of us. Okay? That's us helping a community elder. She's a healer. Okay? She talks about sexual abuse. She's a survivor of sexual abuse. Okay? And she does these amazing workshops where she really creates open spaces for kids to talk about that trauma and how they can heal through it. And here are my students, okay, helping her do that. Becoming agents of change is one of the most crucial issues that their community faces. Another thing I decided to create with local women, of course, a girls' adventure club. The land in the north is beautiful. It's striking, right? And for Indigenous people, we often say it's a place of strength. You know, it's a resource to deal with stress. You really got to connect to the land. But in the colonial history, women have been displaced from that land. It's not safe for them to go on it anymore. They don't have as many people wanting to teach them how to get on it, how to survive on it, right? But listen, I'm going to persevere. I'm going to chase down funding. I'm going to find solutions. I found volunteer hunters and guides who were willing to work with us. We found funding, and we did, I believe, 9 trips that year on the land, right? By the way, does anybody know what this is? That boat up there on the screen? A kayak, yeah, right? Very, very good answer. Do you know who invented it? You guys are the best education school in the world. Oh my gosh. I believe the stats. It's true, right? Wow, right? Round of applause. Woo! Okay. So, I'll give you one small lesson, okay? We all say kayak, but in their language, and they are the people who invented it, so I think we should honor it, you know. They actually say hayak. So can you just try that for a moment? 1, 2, 3. Hayak. Wow, post-colonial. decolonial teaching moment brought to you by a gym teacher. Right? I don't know if you can check out that photo, but that's my student Rebecca, 15 years old. This is the best. We're in a national park, okay? I'm a non-Indigenous Canadian. I thought, okay, go to a national park, hike around, maybe pick some blueberries, take some photos, that's what happens, right? I didn't know when I traveled with my students, oh yeah, they're Indigenous. Okay, so we can do a few more things. Yeah, you can hunt the animals. Really? Okay, this is fun. Okay, so we have the guide, we have the hunter with us. Rebecca lines up, shoots her first ever caribou. Right on the land, we learned how to skin it with her. We carry it back. That's her with her sister. 9 girls in together, right? Shot our first caribou, fished probably countless char, fed ourselves on the land for the whole week, and brought back meat for the whole community. That means a lot in a place with food insecurity. Just look at that peaceful moment, right? Young girls connecting to the land, seeing it as a resource that helps them deal with their mental health issues. So gender-sensitive, authentic, project-based learning actually equals, I've learned, suicide prevention. It's about resilience, school perseverance, and girls' empowerment. I come across like a kind of arrogant gym teacher, and I think phys ed's pretty cool. But I didn't know it could save lives. I'll be honest. I never had that expectation. But in the 7.5 years I've lived in Salluit, I've had 4 young people come to me and say, thank you, Maggie. Thank you for the running club. Thank you for the fitness center. It saved my life. They had a suicide plan. Okay. They knew. In some cases, Dad and Mom are out of town. House is empty. I know where the gun is. I know where the bullets are. I'm going to do it Wednesday. They have a plan. Thanks to having another way to deal with stress, whether that's running, whether it's also connecting with other young, healthy people, whether it's connecting with a coach, a teacher, okay, who they know cares about them. They got through that suicidal thought. They got through that valley, and they're running up another mountain right now. This photo was taken this June. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 7 girls up there. 5 of them had been dropouts. They all graduated. June 12th. I think you also see Mary, one of my runners. Okay? The coolest, there's so many cool things about teaching in the Arctic, but this is pretty cool. Guns in schools, okay? It's kind of a risque topic, okay? I'm glad I'm not talking to Americans. But only in Canada and only in the Arctic, let me qualify that, okay? Or let me just say in this village on this day, okay? We teachers went crazy because that's Mary in the purple dress. On the far side is her cousin Adamy. In the middle is their grandpa. He's so proud of them. They've made it to that marathon finish line of high school education. He gives them both 2 beautiful guns for hunting, right? Culture and school coming together. What have I learned? And again, I didn't know it could be this powerful. I mean, I thought I was going to the north, and I'm like, I'm going to learn about stuff. I'm going to try to contribute as a Canadian. Like, hopefully I'll be humble. Like at least I'll just understand better our Indigenous realities. That was my biggest expectation, but I could just get there, right? I didn't know I would get so close to those students. I mean, check out me and Jay on the corner of that photo, right? Do you know what's supposed to be between us? At least 70 years of intergenerational trauma, right? Gender issues, age issues. He Facebooked me today. He's so happy that I'm here talking about the running stories. Like, hey coach, go give it hard, right? Education can also be about reconciliation. And that's really powerful for Canadians to know. Yeah, but reconciliation, whatever. What about the money, right? Maggie won $1 million. Okay, it's a personal prize, okay? I might get taxed on it, so I'm kind of afraid to take it as a personal prize. So I did buy a tracksuit, okay? It's $1 million US. I'm Canadian, so I'm still a millionaire, so that doesn't faze me at all, right? I think, what do I want to do with this money? What can I do? And I'm inspired by Wab Canoe, an amazing Indigenous Canadian. He went on this vision quest, and he had this vision, and I'll try to read it as well, but he was looking out on the waves, and he talked about, as we rise up, our lives can take different courses. We can turn away from the goodness in the sky above and reflect only darkness, or we can turn ourselves towards goodness and shine brilliantly. We can reflect the light around us. I think Canada has that opportunity right now. And I'm willing to take that $1 million and try to make it shine brilliantly. So this is my dream. Okay, I want to create a nonprofit called Kayak. Okay? Why do and basically it's going to be about helping revitalize the culture of kayaking in the north, because the Inuit have lost it. I've been so lucky. I've lived in so many different countries. I've seen kayaking everywhere. I finally get to the north. It's hardly there at all, right? Okay, high five, right? I'm a gym teacher. That's a Venn diagram, okay? Only for you guys, okay? Only for you guys that bring out my best material, okay? To me, this nonprofit is about physical health and mental health. If I get kids in a kayak and they're moving, okay, when you move you feel better. Research shows that, okay? They've got crazy mental health issues, okay? Physical health, physical activity can be one way to work around that. It's also about culture, identity, and pride. If they're proud and they're connected and they're enjoying their culture and they feel connected again, we know, research shows that in itself builds resilience and helps prevent suicides, okay? Third thing, environment. When you connect with nature, you're improving your mental health. But even more importantly, we're in a state of crazy climate change, you know? The Arctic is experiencing climate change at 4 times the rate of the southern parts of the world. To give you an example, this summer, 2 of my students posted photos on Facebook, okay, of them hunting black bears. Black bears are not supposed to live where we live. We only see polar bears. Nobody in my community, in their collective memory, which reaches back thousands of years, has ever seen a black bear in that environment. Yet 2 came wandering down to the village. That's why they had to shoot them to protect the village, right? Climate change is happening. And I know as Canadians, we always look to our Indigenous people to stand up and protect the environment for us. But I know how much our young people are already dealing with, and I want to make sure that I can create a program that can help cultivate that stewardship and build their capacity around being advocates for climate change. So this summer, I just was able to help organize a level 1 kayak training program, okay? And that's Mary learning how to self-rescue herself. So now she knows how to paddle, how to go front, back, side, etc. She also knows how to flip out of her kayak if she's in big waves, and she knows how to get back in and save herself. I think at the start, you remember I said, gym teacher, feminist, millionaire. What's up? But time machine? Where's that coming from? This is Villasy, okay? She's in that kayak. when we had a CBC, that's our version of BBC, a CBC reporter come up to her and say, "How does it feel to be on the water?" She said, "It feels like I'm with my ancestors." Isn't that amazing? Despite decades of undermining culture, despite decades of colonization, we still have windows to go back in time and connect the greatest resource we have in Canada with their culture, their identity, and their history. What's also nice is this isn't just about me. The man on the right, he's the president of Canoe Kayak Canada, okay? And when I say it just isn't about me getting to connect with Indigenous people, okay? And having moments of reconciliation, he volunteered his time for 2 whole weeks, right? Taught us all about kayaking, right? This is a man who loves kayaking. He's an accountant during the day. In his evenings, he runs the whole canoe kayak office for my entire province, right? He loves to kayak. It's everything to him. And he gets a chance to meet UC, the man on your left here. He gets a chance to hear about, from Inuit themselves, you know, what the people who actually invented it, how it used to be made out of sealskin, how their grandparents used to travel in the front part of the kayak, you know, how it transported them all the way from Greenland to Canada, right? So it becomes an opportunity for connection for Indigenous and non-Indigenous Canadians. And though maybe I'm romanticizing what reconciliation looks like, it has to start somewhere. And I think it starts with moments like this. They brought me all the way here, I should say. Okay, I've got business cards, I'll throw them on the table. I love to connect with people, okay? What's been fantastic today about the Varkey Foundation is they organized an opportunity for us to kayak with 10 inner-city London youth on the River Thames this morning. Fantastic. You guys are also in a mental health crisis. And research shows that you rank 19th out of 20th in a 20-country study on youth mental health. Getting young kids outside, moving their bodies, connecting with nature, build resilience. I know it. I live in the Arctic. I know it. It's true. So I just want to thank you so much for your time. I'm not sure if I've been punctual or not. I haven't checked my watch. I might have gone over time. But I think now we can settle into the question and answer period. Is it okay? Thank you so much for your attention. Oh, do I ask you guys questions? Or do you ask me questions? Are there any questions in the audience? Yes.
Hi, ironically from Canada as well, from Saskatchewan. But from Saskatchewan, somewhere middle. Thank you very much for your talk. I really enjoyed it. My question to you then is, when you first moved over to the Arctic, how did you navigate, I guess, breaking down, the colonial mindset to make sure you connected with the Indigenous people, and what was your biggest obstacle as well in trying to provide a quality and a wholesome education to the students there?
Great question. I'm going to try my best to answer it. I think one of the biggest things that helped prepare me for working in the Arctic was the fact that I had at least 5 years of cross-cultural experience working in an environment in Tanzania and Botswana and Congo that also experienced colonization. And one of the biggest lessons I had, okay, before I went overseas, I'll never forget this. A mentor told me, "Maggie, you have 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mode. So when you come to a new place, you're going to see some things that don't make sense to you, right? You're going to hear some things that make you uncomfortable. Keep your mouth shut. Okay? Don't judge it yet. That's just the tip of the iceberg, right? So it could be very easy for me, and I'll speak in my very real examples, to arrive in the north and 3 days later look out my window and see a drunk Inuit man, stumbling sideways across the street. And I could go on and just say something horrendous about that. And I could judge him. And I might say that comment, at the grocery store, oh, this crazy drunk guy stumbling around town, right? That crazy drunk guy who's probably the uncle of one of my students, right? That crazy drunk guy who has a whole lot of good reasons to drink, right? A whole lot of good decades of intergenerational trauma that reinforce those addictions, right? So that's something I always try to think about. 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. Was it easy when I got there? No, not at all. I'm an outsider. I'm a European white outsider. There's already quite a bit of hostility with the idea of the school system, the legacy of the residential school system. As an example, during the selection process with the Varkey Foundation, I think it was October of last year, they asked me, how can you submit a reference letter from your principal? And I wrote back, I don't have a principal right now. What I didn't say is, I don't have a principal right now because 2 teenagers took their shotgun and shot at his house. He left town. That's the level of hostility we sometimes have. Sometimes I don't want to share that story because I don't want to create a sense of fear, amongst people, and you'll never want to travel to the north or something like that. But it can go to some of those extreme levels. So you got to be real patient and really, really humble, especially as you come in the privilege of being an outsider. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, and I think this gentleman in the blue blazer.
Thanks. Hassan Damaduji from the Gates Foundation. Thanks so much. You've done an obviously incredible job.
From the Gates Foundation, can we match the funding?
Happy to talk about that afterwards, but what I wanted to ask you was, I say you've done an incredible job, but I'm sure you'll agree that one sign of success over the longer term would be that if in so many years' time, the next person you meet talking about how they're transforming the school system in your community is an Indigenous person themselves.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, I'm sure you've thought about that, and so can you just tell us about how you're
100%, yeah. There's plenty of Indigenous teachers teaching in Canada. And in fact, I think the year before me, we had an Indigenous teacher from, I believe it was our province of either Saskatchewan or Manitoba. It was the Prairies. She made the top 50. She runs language camps to help preserve the Indigenous language that she speaks. But I'm willing to critically say it and reflect upon it all the time. How much of the white middle class privilege that's all over me, helped me get an education, helped me do a master's in gym, helped me build a great resume, etc. Helped me have international experience, all of those things, opening doors for me, left, right, and center, being white, working often in non-white, non-European environments, right? So I'm sure that is reflected, at a point in my resume when the Varkey Foundation is receiving that and looking at it, there is a lot of privilege that comes in the door right with me, But since the award has happened, even before the award, I always try to make a very distinct effort that if I'm going through that door, Indigenous people are coming through with me. So on nearly every invitation, I brought Indigenous youth or Indigenous colleagues with me. So in June, I brought 2 Indigenous youth. They were, I think, 24 and 27, all the way with me to Chile. And when the trip was being organized, I said, by the way, like, you got Indigenous people too, so there better be Indigenous content when I get down there, okay? They rose up, they brought us to schools. Mapuche are the majority Indigenous people in Chile, and I think it was an historic first. The Inuit from the Arctic, okay, got to celebrate the Mapuche New Year in a Mapuche village. We were special guests. It was so like special and everything. We couldn't take photos or nothing like that. It was like a super privileged honor. So, and 2 days before, those same Indigenous youth had a 1-hour meeting with President Bachelet, the first female president of Chile, okay? We had a 1-hour meeting. The Canadian ambassador was there with us. He didn't say a word. She talked to them the whole time. They talked about climate change, housing crisis, gender, education, right, their realities. They also talked about our national apology and how that apology is meaningless if it doesn't come with a whole lot of actions. And then when we were at that Mapuche New Year's Festival, one of the staff got a message on his phone. It was a headline, like Google News Alert or something. President Bachelet at that moment on that day back in Santiago was making their apology on behalf of the government to the Mapuche and Indigenous people for the decades of horror that have been enacted upon them. And my students got to be with Mapuche people at that moment. I mean, for $1 million, I couldn't recreate that moment. That was unreal, right? They've been to New York with me. They've been to the United Nations. They've been in Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa. They were supposed to come here and kayak with us, but this is the first week of a special pre-college program that we have for our Inuit youth who are going down south to study, and I can't touch them. They're special week orientation, so I couldn't even bring them here. But they were the Varkey Foundation committed. You're coming, we're going to send some youth as well to you. So that's at least what I try to do, because I think it's an incredible privilege as a non-Indigenous person, to be given this award for working with Indigenous people. So just to honor that, if I come through the door, we all come in, Yes, we got time for one more question over there. Yeah. Oh, yes, please.
I could just Maggie, it's very difficult for me to listen to you because I'm thinking, you're so fantastic, I now feel unworthy.
Oh,
and many people in the room will be thinking, I was thinking of applying for that, but let's just sit down. However, what is your advice for teachers either here or people here who know of great teachers? What advice would you give them to encourage them to apply next year, 2018, to be the Global Teacher Prize winner, or to at least be in the top 50?
Seize it, okay? I don't often tell this part of the story, but this is an ironic backstory. I had a friend, I just met him once in my life. He's a Facebook friend, so I guess it's a friend, I'm not sure, right? I met him once in my life. I gave him a little presentation about teaching in the North. He happens to have a background in education and advocacy. Sends me a Facebook request. I think about it, wait a day, seem like I'm kind of cool, like I got other things to do. Accept, right? He sends me a message, your talk was great, I loved it, you should apply to this prize, Global Teacher Prize, Varkey Foundation. I never heard of that. Thanks so much, thanks for coming on my presentation, but really, that's out of my league, Sends me a message the next month, again. Thanks so much. Sends me a message the third month, Maggie, deadline's coming up. Like, yeah, dude, back at school, things are busy, got slow internet, I don't got time for this. Stop it, right? Sends me a message like September, right? He's like, Maggie, okay, you work with a really special group of people. Maybe if you choose to accept the nomination, maybe there'll be more media attention on these kids that you work with. Like, yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good reason. Okay, I'll think about it. I'll try to get it done. I think I submit it. You know, I'm a kind of a procrastinator, kind of a creative, right? The last day, the final hour, slow internet, submitted the application, went off, right? When I heard they got top 50, amazing. I was like, wow, I made it. That's my finish line. I'm not running no more. I'm so happy here because you had 3 Canadian newspapers come and contact me. And I was able to connect them to my students. And I was like, wow, it happened. Like my friend said, like, wow, cool. And that was it. And I couldn't believe it when I made top 10. I thought, ooh, like I'm a token Canadian, I don't know. Does that happen these days, right? I couldn't believe it at all. And when they said my name, I almost thought it was a gag on stage. Like I thought they were going to say my name and then read everybody's name or something. I still couldn't believe it then, right? So, if you are a teacher, which many of you may be a teacher, yeah, right? Apply, nominate yourself, believe in yourself. Often I think for those of us, some teachers are, I come across kind of funny or arrogant on stage, but I'm really pretty humble in person. And some of us, when I think as teachers, or especially if we work in difficult places, we gotta stay humble because we work in really challenging places. I work in a place with an 85% dropout rate, you know? I'm not walking around like, yeah, we're doing great, right? We've got challenges, and sometimes we don't believe in all the differences that we're making, but absolutely, teachers matter so much. I'm so thankful to the Varkey Foundation because even through this whole process, my students ended up nominating me. They wrote stories I didn't even know about in the ways that I had affected them. Just the whole process is amazing. Even if you don't make it to the $1 million finish line, you know, all of a sudden students are telling you fantastic things. They're learning how to appreciate educators, right? And you're learning, and sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that. You know, teachers matter. Teachers matter so much, right? So please apply Global Teacher Prize, nominate yourself, nominate a colleague, nominate a teacher who's changed your life.
Please.